All right, so this is Gergovia, which is a module for Caesar, Conquest of Gaul, which is the Great Battles of History, Volume 6, I want to say. And one of the reasons I got the counter clipper from Oregon Laminating, or Oregon Tools, is the hex grid is noticeably smaller, the hex size, I should say, of the hex grid on this map is noticeably smaller than on most of the GBOH boards, and it's a pretty tight fit with half-inch counters. You can see there's a fair amount of overlap between the perimeter of the counter, the game piece, and the map itself. And so I went ahead and clipped the rest of the counters that came with the expansion, and now we finally got this guy on the table. One thing I am doing different from the rules as printed, doing a couple things. I'm using the engagement rules from the SPQR rule set. I think it's a fairly new rule that was incorporated in that system, and I think it works well in the Caesar battles. So I'm designating that by putting the cohesion hits on top of game pieces. And the other thing I'm doing different is Julius Caesar. I'm using the standard game piece for him. I disagree with the designers that he was quote-unquote not at his best in this battle. I think just because he lost or withdrew without victory in this case, I don't think he was necessarily any less than what he was. I don't think we need a counter to show his underperformance. I think he's got enough on his plate as it is. So I'm going to play with the standard rules, no changes with him. Used his elite first turn ability to move 4 Roman legions. That would be the 11th, 13th, 10th, and the 8th. Bear with me, sometimes I get the Roman numerals wrong in my battle reports. And these two groups were in the small Roman camp. We've also got the 15th over here, which is a veteran legion. I think that's one that was on loan from Pompey. And then we have the Legio 14, which is a recruit legion that's coming out of the main camp. They're going to try to secure that small fort, because that is one of the objectives of the Arverni, is to get units inside either of the camps. Pretty even match in the cavalry front. We also have some Idui barbarian infantry that are, they have ferocity, they have impetuosity just like everyone else. Use the first turn to really be aggressive with Caesar, knock down the stone wall, the low stone wall, with the 8th and the 10th legions, and get engaged with the 3 smaller tribes that are camped in front of the wall of Gergovia. And we were able to rout 1 and eliminate 3 game pieces and wiped out all of their impetuosity and ferocity. But there's a huge group of Arverni that are coming over here, and I don't remember the exact name of the dude that's leading those at Castelvanus. I think that might be his name. And then we have Vercingetorix over here with the larger group that's going to be coming. They're just out of sight. The Romans really can't see them yet. They're on the other side of the Saddleback Ridge, and they'll be coming into play in the following game turn. And as I said, it's a pretty even fight cavalry-wise. The cavalry, I think, needs to just be really careful. I think you want to use the cavalry to avoid getting flank, the Romans getting flank attacks on the Arverni force that's going to come around this corner that the Romans can't see yet either. And so that is the situation after 1 complete game turn. The Roman cavalry being over here on the slope, just minding the gap between the Idui allies and the legions. Try not to be too aggressive with those back-to-back moves, because you don't want to incur too many cohesion hits. This battle's a little bit different. It is based on victory points and not on rout levels. So the Romans want to keep their losses down while inflicting lots of losses on the barbarians. And this should be a pretty, I think this should be a pretty ferocious fight. They really stuck their hand into the hornet's nest here. And so we're going to see how much honey they can draw out of there without getting stung too bad, if we could use that metaphor. So I will do a series of videos on this particular battle and apprise you of the goings-on in this one, and you can just kind of follow the action. All right, so this is Gergovia turn 2, or I should say at the end of turn 2. So 2 complete game turns have been played, 2 complete cycles. The big events from turn 2 is Caesar maintained his attack on the 3 smaller tribes that are encamped along the ridge line here, right in front of the main wall of the Oppidum of Gergovia. You'll recall from the first turn they did knock down the 6-foot wall in 6 different locations. We have a couple of legions marching up from the camp. Not a whole lot of progress made. Neither one of them obtained momentum. The Aedui allies have made some progress, keeping in pace again with the Roman cavalry. There was no clash of lines there. Now the Arverni are, there's a huge force of Arverni under Vercingetorix here, another force over here that are they present a very grave danger to Caesar's position, because they have the high ground in terms of the actual topography, and they're coming at the weak junctions between legions. You have a recruit legion here, a veteran legion here. This one's in better shape, having obtained momentum. This one is in little rough shape, having traversed some rough terrain, getting out of the smaller camp in order to post itself on the right side of the 10th Legion. But they're in really not an ideal position to withstand a charge by the pretty large force of Arverni that are coming out of the woods from the other side of Gergovia. So if that whole mass attacks this legion, it's possible that they could overcome it. Now, the Gauls suffered a bit of a meltdown in front of the walls of Gergovia, mainly because of a couple of things. It was my own mistake in playing the Arverni that I posted the Arverni archers in such a way as to cover the sides of the city. I should have had them along this wall. I just thought that the camp, there's so many Arverni allies posted in front of the camp in front of the walls in those encampments there, that I thought that the position was secure from being attacked directly. So I posted the archers accordingly to snipe away at anything that makes an approach against the city from that direction. The problem I'm running into with the game itself is that it is challenging to try to figure out, well, really, what was Caesar attempting to do here historically? That is unclear. It's possible he was attempting a coup de main, probing attack, just to kind of see what's there. It's possible he didn't know how much that Vercingetorix had on hand. If you look at the topography of the layout here, you can see where Caesar could be in a position where he's got an elevated knoll here, but he can't see over this ridge line and to see what's really beyond the city there. He sees an encampment in front. It's possible he's thought that that's all there was, and 2 legions, getting up and arraying themselves for battle, and then seeing that, hey, the enemy hasn't stirred. Maybe he took advantage of the situation to launch a surprise attack, see what happens, and just had no idea what else was on hand. Kind of like Little Bighorn kind of a situation where you think you're attacking one force, and then you realize they have 3 times as many as you thought was on hand. In terms of the game, the player knows all of this stuff. So it's like I'm sitting here going, what in the world can I do as Caesar to get some points before we are up to our neck in battling all these Arverni barbarian infantry? That's a pretty big force there. So my goal as the player with the Romans was to beat these guys up over here in front of the walls as much as possible. So I've just been super aggressive, hyper aggressive in beating up the Arverni allies in front of the walls of Gergovia, and I've pretty much done that. The Carnutes, Biturges, the other one that I can't remember, have been badly mangled, and so they've taken some serious losses. There are 2 cohorts inside the walls of Gergovia, and at that point I have a problem with the game, because the game really doesn't address very well what happens when you get inside the city. You're going to have some serious line of sight issues when you get in there. The rules just kind of almost treat it like that shouldn't happen, but it kind of could, and it's just kind of a really weird omission. The rules just feel very incomplete on that front. I would almost prefer to treat Gergovia as as not having a hex grid at all. Like once you cross over into Gergovia, it's like you are in another world, and probably are going to be involved in low-level, ongoing, continuous shot combat for the duration of the game. And so I almost would treat it like there needs to be a morale level for the city, and so these guys could be cut down to a man, or they could, in fact, break the morale of the city, and maybe the city does surrender. But I feel like something should be like the game could be so much better than what it is if it was developed a little bit further than what it is. I guess that's what I'm trying to say. In the current battle, Vercingetorix missed his momentum roll or his trump attempt last turn. That's what it was. And so his force did not move, and Caesar got 3 attempts, three goes, his full complement of goes, and this particular legate got 3 goes as well. He got 2 goes, and that legate got 2 goes. So that enabled the Romans to get a lot done in one turn. So they are sniffing at a plausible victory. I mean, this is a tough battle for the Romans to win, but they're sniffing around at the possibility of it. If we look at the score currently is the Romans have racked up 22 points. They need to get to 35. So that's achievable, especially when you can get into the city with your cohorts. Each cohort in the city is worth 2 points. They've only scored, there are 7 Roman units that are routed and or depleted, in a depleted state. None of them have died yet, but this next turn I expect things are going to get pretty violent. And I still expect the Verni are probably still going to find a way to win this thing, because these 2 legions, the 8th and the 10th, are in a pretty precarious situation, given that these guys are, pretty weak legion, and Disordered Legion is guarding the right flank, and there's quite a bit of separation between that legion and the 10th. So this is going to be a dangerous attack here. Now they can't go all into this gap, because there's a force of cavalry and there's the Idui on hand. But these legions are, this legion here, the 15th, is pretty far back. This legion here, I think it's the 14th, is also quite a ways away from the main action. It's this force here under Vercingetorix that could, if they got 3 goes and then use Vercingetorix's elite ability on the following turn, they could do a tremendous amount of damage in one turn. One last thing, as I said earlier in the video, I am using the normal Caesar. I'm not using the little 4 initiative Caesar. I'm not buying that. So we're using the normal Caesar, and I'm using the normal, what do you call them, Aquila rules, the Eagle rules for rally. Although this one did a camp rally just because of where the Eagle was at the time. It seemed better to send them back to the camp than to try to, yeah. Anyways, so I'm using some house rules with this, and in order to pursue how the battle may take place. I might write up some house rules for what happens if and when you get into Gergovia to make the battle. I think it might make things a little bit more realistic for the player, because at this point it's like just, maybe if they mob rush enough guys and get them into the city, they can snag a victory, even though they're doomed to die when these guys circle around and cause all kinds of havoc outside the city. Caesar would have been in a terrible position in that case. So there's some things that do need to be addressed with this, but so far it has been very interesting. It's been very eye-opening. It's given me good insight into how things might have looked in this battle, and I think that there's some great value in that, and that's one of the things we like about the Great Battles of History series. So turn 3 of Gergovia has finished, and it was a complete disaster for the Arverni. Vercingetorix badly underperformed. Well, read it like this. He whiffed on all of his trump attempts. On turns 2 and 3, he was completely inactive, inert. And so the main striking force that could really, is really meant to win the battle for the Gauls didn't even get engaged. Caesar, on the other hand, never missed a momentum attempt, and as a consequence was pretty effective in destroying the 3 tribes that were parked in front of the wall, getting some guys in. Now they lost 1 cohort, got cut down inside the city and died. It's once you're in, boy, It's a fight to the death now, so be careful about sending your guys in. If there's a chance that they're going to get routed, that's going to be all she wrote for them. The Arverni over here, Vercassivellanis' Arverni, attacked. It was pretty ferocious, but they didn't really break the 13th Legion. They got them heavily engaged, but it was nothing really spectacular. Routed a couple of cohorts, and that was about it. The cavalry were screening the flanks of the infantry there. The Romans engaged, and again, not a whole lot to write about there. They're all still fully engaged, and lots of fighting going on here. But the real problem is that the Aedui are in position to envelop this force. They've kind of fallen into a sack here. The 10th Legion and the 13th Legion are holding that line. And the end result of that is what I had feared earlier in the last segment of the video, was that even if the Romans got into Gergovia, that they'd be cut off when this force engages and Vercingetorix engages. But the fact of the matter is we have an unengaged legion that's marching very slowly in column to the battlefront. So this force is not going to break through the Romans. In fact, they're probably going to be destroyed by the Aedui and this legion if they could ever win a momentum roll. The legion down here also couldn't buy a momentum roll the entire game. They pretty much were a non-factor. In fact, I didn't activate any of the skirmishers because I didn't want to use any of Caesar's activations to activate them. And same thing with Vercingetorix. I should have this last turn used one of his activations to activate the skirmishers in Gergovia. I didn't. Paid the price for it now because this is checkmate. The final straw was when the first cohort of the 10th Legion got over the wall. They're going to do it every time. All they got to do, you have to roll less than your TQ, and he's got a TQ of 9, so he's going to make it. He makes it in, that's 2 points, and he's going to kill both the routed boys. That's the last 2 points, and that's going to push the Romans over the edge. 35 VPs to 11 for the Gauls. So you see, the Gauls need to get just to 25, so they don't have to do a whole heck of a lot. All you really got to do is get this guy engaged, that group engaged, and you're probably going to win the game with the Gauls every time. What made the difference this time is, again, Caesar made his momentum rolls. Vercingetorix, on the other hand, couldn't succeed with his trumps. And the Romans were rolling very well with momentum on their legates. The legate for the 13th Legion activated the full 3 times. So he succeeded in momentum twice. This legate here succeeded a couple times. This past turn, it was really only the legate for 13th Legion that was reactivating. But it was getting dangerous, and it was completely taking... They were just completely taking all the steam out of the Arverni charge, and so Vercingetorix says it's time to trump that. We need to put a stop to this, and failed. I probably shouldn't have done that. Should have just let it ride out, then activate Vercingetorix, go for his momentums, make Caesar try to trump him. If he fails, then the tide will turn. The Gauls will almost certainly win the game, I think, at that point. But it didn't work out that way, so we have an unlikely victory. Battle of Gergovia took 3 turns. It takes some time to play. There's a lot of units on the board, and again, very different victory goals. So I like this one. I do feel like it needs a little bit of development. Like it could be a much better game, much better battle than what it is if maybe there was some further development to the game itself. So that's my only caveat for playing Gergovia. And again, I'm not entirely sure if this comes with a new deluxe version of Julius Caesar or not, but it certainly is an interesting fight. And in this case, some very unexpected things happen, so makes it worthwhile to play.